So it's just been recently announced that Game has stopped doing trading. I've been wondering for a little while now, are Game actually collapsing as a company? So they've stopped doing trade-ins, which is apparently one of their biggest things, or was one of their biggest things, to driving customers. And I've also noticed that my local Game, the only Game actually near where I'm based, which is the northeast of England in Middlesbrough, they've actually relocated their main shop into the corner of Sports Direct. So in this particular branch, you've got to go up about 2 or 3 escalators to get to Game. And when you finally get there, I'm sort of thinking Labyrinth, David Bowie to get there. It seemed like that at the time. It was just pathetic. It was in the corner, in the darkest corner, with very little to offer. And, you know, as a kid in the early 90s, I would literally leave Game as the last resort. And of course, if you're at a certain age, maybe my age, around your late 30s, early 40s, and even older, you'll probably remember that in the UK, we had lots of different independent game shops dotted around. In Bristol, where I grew up, we have Electronics Boutique, we had Pink Planet, obviously Gamestation, which was my absolute favourite, probably most favourite game shop there ever was. The reason why Gamestation was one of my favourites is that the staff seemed a bit human. Now, if I look back on my experiences with Game in the past, the staff were very corporate. And by corporate, I mean that they didn't really have much life to them. It was more of a robotic and wooden approach, like I was almost in Tesco or something rather than a game shop. And of course, I'm a retro channel, but having said that, I could easily take this back to the early 90s or even 80s with these independent game shops and just give you my personal opinions of how the game shop industry on the high street has ended. So, like I say, early 90s, Game was my last resort. I would rather much go to other independent game shops, and that's not to say that there's not independent game shops around today, because there's a really good independent game shop in Middlesbrough, Super Games World. Very good shop. But the point is that I've seen Game over the years literally wipe out all of these little independent game shops. Like you remember, like I remember, there was lots of them scattered around the UK. You know, as a kid, I was going on holiday to places like Weymouth in Cornwall, and there was new shops to explore. But if you go on the high street in the last few years, or even the last 10 years, you will literally just see Game. And it's just something about Game I don't personally like and never have liked. And if I'm honest, I'm kind of glad to see them collapse. It's a bit odd that they're now being pushed into Sports Direct. I don't know much about the internals of the company itself, but it seems like they're almost still in a post office, using WH Smith as like a little place to hide. So the reason I say this is because they've literally eaten alive most independent game shops over the years, and now they're kind of fooling themselves. So what does this mean for the future of game shops on the high street? I'm personally hoping that we're going to see a revival in all these independent game shops come back. But we're also in different times nowadays. More people are buying digital games online and that type of thing. And another thing I didn't particularly like about Game is that Gamestation would still cater for older systems in its day, whereas Game took over and that was it. I'd look for a retro something in Game and it was non-existent. Okay, so you got your plushes, a Zelda plushie, a Link plushie, a Mario, but this isn't retro gaming, this is just little add-ons. And something else I didn't particularly like about Game was the staff. Now, say you're a staff member, I apologise, but most staff I ever spoke to in Game didn't really have much knowledge. It was almost like they were there because it was just a job, whereas Gamestation staff, who Game eventually eaten up just like most other game shops, they seem a bit more humanised. They seem a bit more with it. They seem much more knowledgeable, and you had true caring people in Gamestation. Like I say, Gamestation in Bristol, for example, was by far one of my favourites. The staff in there were amazing. Manager in there, Matt, at the time. And if you happen to watch this video, Matt, hello. You probably remember me and my 2 kids at the time coming in from time to time. But that's it. So seems to me then, all in all, that Game have eaten things up, messed up game shops on the high street, and now they run away. They're collapsing. But like I also say, we're in different times nowadays. More people are buying digital. So of course we got CEX nowadays, which is pretty much your dominant gaming shop on the high street in Britain. And just like Game, it was actually founded in 1992, and CEX originated in Tottenham, London, Tottenham Court Road. So what is it that CEX are doing right? So right that they're actually building new shops on the high street today, whereas Game are just going into Sports Directs. Is it that CEX staff are a lot more knowledgeable? They offer better trading deals? And is it that CEX have more of a humanised approach to the customer? They seem a little bit more real rather than Game staff. So, like I say, most game shops are wiped out now, and that's it. By the seams of it, CEX is the high street game shop to go to. And in my experience, CEX have always offered very good trading prices. And like I also say, CEX staff has always been fairly knowledgeable with the item, the products, what they're selling. And they don't restrict themselves either from not buying in retro stuff. Say Commodore 64 ZX Spectrums, for example. Largely, CEX staff seem very legitimately interested in games. Whereas, like I say, you go into Game and it's more like you're buying some groceries from Tesco or Asda. But I thought I would just mention this and get your feedback on what you think of this. If you're around my age, do you have the same feelings as me? That Game has always been a bad place. Like I say, early 90s, last resort, I literally remember buying a Commodore Amiga game in Game around 93, 94. And I'm pretty sure that was the only game I ever bought from Game. So anyways, let me know what your feelings are on Game doing what they've done. If you've got the same feelings as me, that we've seen better and much better high street game shops, retro game shops, let me know your thoughts. And anyways, until next time, stay retro.